All right, guys, we're going to continue with our unit on converting between units. We're going to be moving on to the metric system. The metric system is a system used by most of the world, and it's based on the powers of 10. It says the great thing about the metric system is based on powers of 10. Each unit is either a power of 10 greater than or a power 10 less than the other units within the system. The metric system also uses the same prefixes for all three types of measurement: length, which is meters, mass and weight, which is grams, and capacity, which is liters. And in order to be able to do this, I want to review real quickly, and you can do this off to the side on your paper. I want to review real quickly multiplying and dividing with powers of 10. So I want to look at, let's go ahead and scroll up a little bit, a couple problems. And yes, I'd like you to write them down. So please, off to the side, write 3.453 and 4500 times 10 to the third. If you recall, when we multiply by a power of 10, we move the decimal point to the right, the same number of decimal places as indicated by the exponent. So I'm going to move to the right the decimal point 1, 2, 3 places. And you'll notice I have a space after the 5. That means that is going to be filled with a 0. 3,450 is 1,000 times greater than 3 and 4500ths. Okay, 3 decimal points. Well, when I move it for divide by a power of 10, you're still going to move the decimal point the same number of places as the exponent, but this time you are going to move it to the left. So we're going to move the decimal point 2 places, the number of indicated by the exponent, to the 1, 2 places left, and that would give us an answer of 0.1425. I would like you to pause the video real quickly, do number 3 and 4 on your own, and when you're finished, unpause it and check your answer. All right, number 3, we're dividing. When you divide, that means you move the exponent to the left. We're moving it a total of 4 places. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That means you're going to have to put a 0 in front of the 2. So your final answer is, let me read this for you. It's 20,174 millions. There you have it. All right, for number 4, we're multiplying. So we're going to move the exponent to the right, the same number of places as indicated by the exponent, which is a 4. So we're going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, we have a space here. That means it's going to be filled with a 0 and gives us a final answer of 12,610. All right, this is what we're doing. The multiplication and division should be so much easier for the lesson today, because we don't have to do long division. We don't have to do 2, 3-step multiplication. We're just multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. All right, the next page we have our metric conversion guide. You'll notice that we are given the 3 main units, meter, liter, and gram. And the unit itself, if you have 1 meter, 1 liter, 1 gram, they're just called that. If we have 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more, or 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times less, then you add a prefix to it. And the prefixes for greater are deca, hecto, and kilo. Notice that I outlined kilo. Really, we don't use deca and hecto. It's not used very often, but we use kilograms a lot because that's a measurement of something very big, like mileage. We call it miles. Well, they measure distance, long distances in kilograms. If we have less than the unit, we have deci, centa, and milla. And I want to point out that, again, I outlined cent and milli because those are the ones we use. But it helps to remember that there are 100 years in a century. Okay? So centa is 100. It takes 100 centimeters to equal 1 meter. There are 1,000 years in a millennium. and there are 1,000 milliliters in a meter. You need to learn centa, milli, and kilo. Those are the ones that we are going to be doing. Kilo, you would multiply or divide by 10 to the third. Centa, you're going to multiply you're going to divide by 10 to the second, and milli you are going to divide by 10 to the third. All right? And some people use the acronym or the saying, King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. We don't really use the usually part, but drinking chocolate milk to help you remember kilo, hecto, deca, deci, centa, milli. Again, the three that we're going to be looking at are kilo, centa, and milli. Okay? Go to the next, or you're going to go to the next page, but we're going to start with how many millimeters are in a centimeter. Well, you'll notice here that a centimeter is 10 times greater than a millimeter. Therefore, there are 10 millimeters, mm, is equal to 1 centimeter, cm. Okay? And here's our chart. Please recall that smaller to bigger you divide, bigger to smaller you multiply. Again, if there's nothing else you memorize, you really do need to memorize that. So if we are going to be going from centimeters to millimeters, you're going to divide. If we're going to go from millimeters to centimeters, you're going to multiply. All right, so let's look at this page. The two premier phone giants, Apple and Samsung, let me get this back to a pen, are at it again. Apple is advertising their latest iPhone to have a length of 14 and 7/500 centimeters. Samsung is advertising their latest Note to have a length of 135 and 7/10 millimeters. Which phone is bigger and by how much? All right, so let's look at how we're going to do this. Again, our conversion is 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter. Okay, so if we're going to convert the iPhone, 114 and 7/500 centimeters, and we want to find out how many millimeters that is, are we going to multiply or divide? We're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so we're going to multiply. And we're going to multiply 14 and 7/500 by 10. It's that simple, because there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter, meaning you're just going to move the decimal point one place to the right, and that gives you 147 and 5/10 millimeters. Well, that's not our final answer because the question was by how much. So the iPhone is larger. By how much indicates that we're going to subtract. So we are going to take 147 and a half. We're going to subtract 135 and 7/10. And that would be 11 and 8/10, which is very tiny millimeters. It's just over a centimeter larger. Okay. If we convert the Note to centimeters, well, the Note is 135 and 7/10 millimeters. And we want to find out how many centimeters that is. Well, if we're going from a smaller unit to a larger, we're going to divide. So we're going to take 135 and 7/10 and we're going to divide it by 10 because the conversion is 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter, meaning we're going to move the decimal point one place to the left. That gives you 13 and 5/700 centimeters. So if I subtracted these two, if I subtracted 14 and 7/500 minus 13 and 57 centimeters, hundredths, what do you think I'm going to get? I don't even have to do the subtraction. If I look at what I have here, 11 and 8/10, and now I'm going to have it in centimeters, wouldn't I just move the decimal point one place to the left? It's 1 and 1800 centimeters smaller. Does that make sense? The brilliant thing about the metric system is that the multiplication and division is so easy because you're just moving the decimal point. All right, now we're going to convert from millimeters to meters. How many millimeters are in a meter? Well, how many years are in a millennium? There are 1,000 millimeters equal to 1 meter. And 1 meter in our perspective is approximately a yard. It's a little bit more than that. It's close to 39 inches. It's a little bit more. Okay? Again, note, and I will keep pointing this out until we really understand it, that if I go from smaller to bigger, I divide, and from bigger to smaller, you multiply. Again, it's the opposite of what your brain tells you to do. All right, so if you want to find out how many meters are in a certain number of millimeters, you divide. And if you want to find out how many millimeters are in a certain amount of meters, you multiply. So let's look at our two questions here. Here's our conversion. So if we are going to be multiplying or dividing by 10 to the third power, how many places will we be moving the decimal point? Correct, 3. So if we look at our number, 13,734, how many meters are in that many millimeters? We are going to divide, meaning we're going to move the decimal point, which happens to be at the end, 3 places to the left, because we are dividing, and that would give you 13 and 734 thousandths meters. Okay? If we're going to convert millimeters to meters, we're going to multiply. Okay? Multiply by 10 to the third. So we have 4 and 934 thousandths times 10 to the third. Meaning we're going to move the decimal point 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So that gives you 4,934 millimeters. Okay? If I went too fast, slow me down, go back, pause me so that you can get the writing caught up, and then move forward. All right, so now let's look at somewhere in a parallel universe, things are much smaller. Your room in the parallel universe has the dimensions of 9,375 millimeters in length and 5,125 millimeters in width. What is the area of your room in our universe? Well, we are going to be converting from millimeters to meters, okay? So we have to convert the dimensions first. So if I have 9,375 and 5,125 millimeters, and I'm going to convert from millimeters to meters, I have 1,000, actually, I want to change the color here. I have 1,000 millimeters equals 1 meter. If I'm going to convert from a larger unit, or excuse me, sorry, from a smaller unit to a larger unit, are you going to multiply or divide? Divide. The decimal point for both of these numbers is located at the end. If we are going to divide by 1,000, we're going to move the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 3 zeros to the left. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So we have 9 and 375, thousandths times 5 and 125 thousandths. And for sake of time, I am not going to make you find the area. We're not going to do long division. I'm actually punching them in a calculator right now. 375 times 5 and 125. Oops. 5 and 125 thousandths equals, the one question I will ask is how many places will you move the decimal point over at the end in your final answer? How many total? 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 total places. So the dimensions of your room are 48, 0, 4, 6, 8, 7, 5, 46,175 millionths, and that would be meters. All right. Usually when you get a number that large, you round, usually to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth, but we'll just leave it as is for this problem. All right, now we're going to go from centimeters to meters. How many centimeters are in a meter? How many years are in a century. There are 100 years in a century, so 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. That's the same as 2 to the 10th, or second, sorry, 10 to the second. I said it opposite. Centimeters equals 1 meter. Okay? So, again, kind of just stress this again and again and again. If we go from smaller, bigger, we divide. Bigger to smaller, we multiply. Okay? So if we look at converting from meters to centimeters, if we're going from bigger to smaller, we what? Oh, sorry, smaller to bigger. We're converting to meters. We divide. And we're going to divide by 10 to the second, which means we're going to move the decimal point 2 places. Should be between the 4 and the 5, which gives you 4 and 5,627 10,000ths meters. How much easier is the metric system than the customary? Okay. How many centimeters are in 83,983 and 2,500 meters? Well, if we're going from larger to smaller unit, we multiply. And we are going to multiply by 10 to the second power, or 100. So we are going to take the decimal point here and move it 2 places to the right. Just put arrows at the end. Meaning I have, excuse me, 8,398,323 centimeters. Okay. So now Gary has enough of Bikini Bottom. I don't even know. I guess that's a person. I don't know SpongeBob. Sorry, guys. So he's out of here. Being a snail, he moves at a leisurely pace. If he can travel 625 centimeters each hour, how many meters will Gary have traveled in 8 hours? All right, so this is a two-step problem here, because the question asks how many meters will Gary travel in 8 hours. If he travels 625 miles in each hour, we've got to do 2 steps here. We first have to convert the centimeters. It doesn't ask us, oh, it does ask meters. We have to convert the centimeters to meters, and then we have to multiply that by 8, okay? So if we have 625 centimeters, and we want to find out how many meters that is, we first need to know our conversion. There are 100 centimeters equals, all right. Sorry about that, guys. I had a couple people come in and ask me questions. So we were at, there's 625 centimeters. We got to convert to meters. The conversion is 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. We have to decide, since we're going from a smaller to a larger unit, we're going to divide. And if we divide by 100, we move the decimal point, which is here, 2 places to the left. So therefore, the answer would be 6 and 2,500 meters, but that's not our final answer. The question was how far he would travel in 8 hours. This is how far he travels in 1 hour. So we need to take the 6 and 2,500, we need to multiply it by 8. Okay, so that's 1620, 48, 49, 50. Wow, that actually worked out very nicely, huh? We're going to move the decimal point in our final answer 2 places. So it's here at the end, so 2 places. So our final answer would be 50 meters in 8 hours. You know, the amazing thing about that is we said a bunch of words and never wrote a single word. 50 meters, oh, I guess we wrote the word in 8 hours. All right. All right, last one for today. We are converting from meters to kilometers. There are 1,000 kilometers equals 1 meter. Okay, 1,000 kilometers and 1 meter. So when we convert, you are either going to multiply or divide by 1,000, which does sound familiar. Millimeters, 1,000 as well. And when we go from I didn't remind you, got to go back up here. When we go from smaller to bigger, we divide, and bigger to smaller, we multiply. Again, the opposite of what you would instinctively think to do. So if we have 2,100 or 713 meters, and we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we divide. And we're going to divide by 10 to the third, which means we're going to move the decimal point 3 places to the left. The decimal point is currently after the 3. We're going to move it 1, 2, 3 places to the left. So the answer would be 2 and 713 thousandths kilometers. All right. If we're going to find out how many meters there are in my fault, this should have been kilometers. Please change it. We are going to multiply. So if we go from a bigger to a smaller unit, we're going to multiply. So we have 42 and 85 hundredths, and we're going to multiply that by 10 to the third, which means we're going to move the decimal point 1, 2, 3 places to the right. We're going to put a 0 at the end, so we have 42850, 42,850 meters. Okay. All right, you went on a subway tour in Subway Surfers. In Cairo, you traveled on your hoverboard for 8 and 47 kilometers. In Tokyo, 8,740 meters. And in Paris, 870,470 centimeters. In which city did you travel the farthest? Okay, we're not going to make this difficult, okay? We're going to actually make this pretty easy. We're going to look at it in relationship to meters because that's our unit. So we're going to look at everything in relationship to 8,740 meters, okay? In Cairo, you traveled kilometers, and in Paris, you traveled centimeters. And I actually don't think the 0 should be there because if you notice, there's no 0 after the 7. So let's go ahead and erase that and have just 87,470 centimeters. All right? So we are going to convert both of these. There are 1,000 kilometers in 1 meter. Okay, so we're going to convert to meters so that we compare, and then we're going to convert the centimeters to meters so that we can compare all of them. So I'm going to take the 8 and 47 hundredths. I'm going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, therefore I'm going to multiply by 1,000, which means you're going to move the decimal point 1, 2, 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3. Add a 0 at the end, and you have 8,470 meters. Well, how does this compare? It's the same, right? It's the same, they're equivalent. He traveled the same number of meters, the same distance. Now, my conversion here, 100 years in a century, so there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. We're going from a smaller to a larger, centimeters to meters, so we are going to divide. So we're going to take the 87,470 centimeters, decimal point is here at the end, and we're going to move it 1, 2 zeros at 100, so 1, 2 places to the left, and that gives you 874 and 700 meters. So if we compare them, Cairo and Paris, or excuse me, Tokyo are the same, and in Paris he traveled the least. All right, we're going to stop the video here. When you come in tomorrow, we are going to go straight to these problems here for your warm-up, so make sure you're ready for that. You can go ahead and stop the video and get started on your homework.